We begin today with Benjamin Harrison. If you do not have any of the outline of my lecture in front of you, please get that in front of you as I go through his presidency. Harrison was brisk and abrupt. He could chill individuals with his clammy handshake. He came to be known rather unfairly as the White House ice chest. To his credit, though, he appointed to the Civil Service Commission a violently energetic New Yorker, one Theodore Roosevelt. And this is our first scene of Theodore Roosevelt. We will see him obviously many more times. He received his position as a reward for his oratory in the recent campaign, but ironically, his new job was to prevent crass spoilsmanship. So he gets his job through the spoils system, helping Harrison get elected. And what is his job to be? To keep others from getting their jobs through the spoils system. He is to help work on the Civil Service Commission. Make sure you earn your job by passing the exams. President Harrison was a Civil War general. He was disposed to deal generously with his old comrades in arms. He appointed as Commissioner of Pensions one James Tanner. Tanner had lost both of his legs at the Battle of Bull Run. Tanner promised to drive a 6-mule team through the Treasury and to wring from the hearts of some the prayer, God save the surplus. Here you see Harrison once again portrayed in his grandfather's great big hat. And that huge surplus we had left over from the Cleveland administration. Boy, oh boy, is he getting rid of it. And it's going down the billion-dollar hole. And it is James Tanner that is taking care of that huge surplus by handing it out to the veterans. He is a veteran and he's going to take care of the veterans. Another cartoon showing the extravagance of Harrison. Here first, 1889. Harrison is leaving office. He's tipping his hat. I'm sorry, not Harrison, Cleveland. He's tipping his hat. I'm out of here. And Harrison takes over as Cleveland leaves, and the U.S. Treasury. Boy, do we have a surplus, and I've got the key to it. And a few years later, as now Harrison will be leaving office, Cleveland, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Cleveland is coming back into office after 4 years of Harrison and the U.S. Treasury. What has happened? It has been looted. And look at all of the drawers are empty. My goodness, where is the money? Ta 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 ta, I'm out of here. Yes, Harrison has taken care of Cleveland's embarrassing problem of this surplus. We will never, ever again have that problem. Tanner's extravagance and ineptitude cost him his job in less than a year, but he cut the Treasury so much that we have never since had that embarrassing surplus. Congress finally passed the Pensions Act of 1890. It gave pensions to all Union Civil War veterans who had served at least 90 days, 3 months. You are a Union soldier, you served 90 days, and you are now unable to do manual labor. Civil War ended in 65. This is now 1890. 65, 75, 85. So we are 25 years later. Within those 25 years, has anything happened to you? Have you broken your leg? Have you hurt your back? Have you somehow hurt yourself? So it didn't matter if you were damaged during the war or you have somehow hurt yourself since the war. If you are no longer able to do manual labor, you are eligible for a pension as a wounded Civil War veteran. This policy, of course, benefited the Republicans because, first of all, it solved the problem of the Treasury surplus that had bothered Cleveland. Secondly, it helped to save the protective tariff by making it now necessary to continue the high customs duty. If we drain the Treasury and the duty, the tariff is how the Treasury earns money, we need money for the Treasury. So we must therefore keep the customs duties high. And that's what the Republicans like, is a high tariff. And third, it helped to secure Republican votes. You don't shoot Santa Claus. Every last one of those veterans that is getting a check from the government, how are they going to vote? Are they going to vote Democrat? No, they're going to vote Republicans. They're going to be grateful to the GOP, the Grand Old Party, for its handouts. Grand Old Party, that's the Republican Party. Oftentimes you'll be listening to the news and you'll hear it and you'll not know what they're saying. And they'll talk about the GOP, the GOP. GOP, Grand Old Party. That's the Republican Party. Been known for that for many years. So now, maybe when you're listening to the news or someone says that, I know what the GOP is. That's the Republican Party. And we have discussed the silver issue before. We are now going to be discussing the silver issue again. Western miners had been unhappy. Oh, sorry. One more cartoon before we move on. Yes, that GOP. And speaking of both parties and the GOP, the elephant is a mascot or symbol for the Republican Party, and the donkey, or as the Republicans would like to call it, the jackass, is the symbol for the Democratic Party. So those two symbols have been around for quite a long time. Western miners were unhappy with the limited silver purchase under the Bland-Allison Law of 1878, which had allowed 2 to 4 million ounces monthly to be purchased. Now Congress passes the Sherman Silver Purchase Act of 1890. Now the Treasury was to buy a total of 4.5 million ounces monthly. So previously 2 to 4, now you must buy 4.5 monthly, or all that was being mined, and pay for it in notes redeemable in either silver or gold. What a windfall for the silver industry. Everything you could mine, you didn't have to worry about finding buyers. You had a buyer. If you could mine it, the U.S. government would buy it. This would approximately double the minimum amount of silver that could be acquired under the old Bland-Allison law. Once again, I've touched on the silver issue. We are not done with it. We will pick it up again. Remember I told you earlier about gold bullion, silver bullion? Yes, the concept of it being in bars. Yes, we are buying silver bullion. And on to the tariff. Hang on. A bill was sponsored in the House by William McKinley of Ohio. He was soon to be dubbed the High Priest of High Protection. Rates were boosted to the highest level yet, an average of 48.4% on dutiable goods. That's almost 50%. So if an item is coming into the United States from England, France, Germany, wherever, and say this item cost $2, till you put the tariff on it, when the merchant goes to get it off the ship, he is now paying $3 for that item. Till he puts his markup on it, it may be ending up being $4 on the shelf. So the U.S. manufacturer, as long as he can get it to the merchant and the merchant put his markup on it, and as long as it's under $4, that's all it has to be, a few cents under, and the consumer is going to buy the American product rather than the foreign product. So with such a high tariff, that allows the American manufacturer to have a whole lot of cush room for their products and the extra they can charge consumers or the companies that are going to be buying their products. These new manufactured goods actually brought new woes to the farmers. Some Eastern manufacturers raised their prices even before the law went into effect. Discontent mounted in the Midwest Farm Belt. The congressional landslides of 1890 reduced the Republican membership in the House from 166, almost in half, down to 88 members, as compared with going up for the Democrats to 235 Democrats. Even William McKinley was swept out of office, but he was elected governor of Ohio the next year and remained in the limelight. The way our elections are done, Congress is up for election every 2 years. What if every congressman that is incumbent, meaning you're already in office and you're running to stay in office for another term, what if every incumbent does not win re-election and every newbie, every person that is new challenging them wins? How could Congress function if every person shows up the first day and there's nobody that has been there before, knows how things are run, and everybody's new, and bills and things that are halfway through the process? Well, what do we do with this? Well, what do we do with that? It would be chaos. And so Congress has set up that every 2 years, 1/3 of Congress is elected. So if every last incumbent doesn't win and every last one of the newbies shows up, it's still only 1/3 new people. You can still have a sense of continuity and get business done. So in 1888, Harrison was elected and 1/3 of Congress was elected, all in that same election. Then 2 years later, it's known as the midterm elections. Oftentimes that is a determinant of how popular the president is. So if this is a Republican president and he does not do well, and instead the Democrats win, that tells the nation, hey, this president isn't very popular. And sure enough, the Democrats sweep in Congress, even William McKinley for boosting that tariff so high. Ooh, the constituents say, we don't like what you're doing, and they chuck him out of office and put someone else in. Then 2 years later, next president is up for re-election and 1/3 of Congress. Then 2 years later, 1/3 of Congress is up for re-election. So every 2 years, 1/3 of Congress. So William McKinley, and granted, this is not the end of William McKinley, and he stays in the limelight. He is elected as governor of Ohio the next year. But for his being the high priest of high protection and that high tariff, he is thrown out of Congress. And the next election of 1892. In July, the Populists formally met in Omaha for their presidential nominating convention. You're saying, Populist, what is that? For the most part, in the United States, we have always had a two-party system. Every once in a while, a third party will come along. Oftentimes, they're not that strong, but every once in a while, one will actually give a good charge. We had the Whig Party, which was a third party, and we had two presidents out of the Whig Party. We had the Know Nothing Party. Well, that was its nickname. It was the American Party. And here we've got the Populist Party. We've had other independents run and do rather well. But here we've got one that you'll remember. Senior moment. The guy with the big Perot, Ross Perot. Maybe you won't remember him. Dang, that might be before your time. But that was the last really strong independent. He started out strong and then he quit running and then he started running. And so people sort of lost faith in him towards the end. But Ross Perot started out as a strong independent. But here, the Populist Party is being created because there are some people that are really disenfranchised with the Republicans, particularly out west, Midwest, this whole tariff issue, and disenfranchised with the Democrats, or they're not Democrats, and so let's create a new party, this Populist Party. Conservatives, though, called them a mass meeting of maniacs. They nominate for their presidential candidate General James B. Weaver. So the Republicans renominate, of course, Benjamin Harrison, Democrats with Cleveland, and the Populist General James B. Weaver. They have as their campaign platform three things. First of all, the free and unlimited coinage of silver at a ratio of 16:1. Even with the new Sherman Silver Purchase Act, we never even got close to 16:1. And I haven't told you, but we are about to ruin our economy with that new Sherman Silver Purchase Act. But it hasn't had time to do that yet. But these Westerners, these populists, they said, hey, we want even cheaper money. We want even more help for a Western industry, all this silver mining. We want the unlimited coinage of silver at a ratio of 16:1. Secondly, they urged for a graduated income tax. Oh, now that is a very good idea. The government has to have money to run. They don't like the high tariff. So they've actually come up with a useful solution. If the government still needs money and we don't want a high tariff, let's have an income tax, but a graduated income tax. Does that mean the poor guy and the farmer is going to pay it? No. The wealthy, the industrialists, all you big cats out there who have been enjoying getting off not paying while you received all this money from high tariffs and etc. Now it's your time to pay. So, graduated income tax. And third, it insisted on government ownership of the telephone, telegraph, and particularly of the railroads. As you will be reading in your textbook during this time period, there was real unfair distribution of how the railroads treated big business versus the smaller common man. and different rates were given to bigger farmers to haul their grain and products to market than the smaller farmers. And a lot of inequity was going on. And the Westerners, particularly the farmers, said, no, this is not fair. Someone needs to, if it's private industry, they can do as they please. The railroads are privately owned. And they said, no, we need the government to step in and start controlling some of these things, particularly the railroads. And that was campaign poster Weaver for the Populace. Here we have campaign poster for Benjamin Harrison. And he switches his vice presidential running mate for this campaign. Every 4 years, even if it's the same president running again, he can change his vice presidential running mate. I was so pleased that Trump actually kept Pence. I think Pence is a very steadying factor for Donald Trump, and I think he was very wise in keeping Pence on his ticket. The Republicans renominate Harrison, and the Democrats renominate Grover Cleveland. On the whole, this campaign of 1892 was quiet, clean, and credible. Republicans cried, "Grover, Grover, all is over," while the Democrats came back with the chant. Just a second. Hey, I'm in the middle of a lecture. A couple more minutes. Come on home. Okay, bye. While the Democrats came back with their own chant. Grover, Grover, 4 years more of Grover. Out they go. In we go. Then we'll be in clover. But ultimately, same as 4 years before, the tariff was the overshadowing issue. Grover Cleveland also switches his running mate. Granted, 4 years have transpired and he's been out of office for 4 years, but he picks up Adlai Stevenson. Remember, Adlai's axe chopped off the jobs of 40,000 postmasters 4 years earlier when the Democrats just came into office. Still, his values are the same. The necessaries of life used and consumed by all the people, the duty upon which adds to the cost of living in every home, should be greatly cheapened. Once again, how do we do that? Lower the tariff. Tariff reform. Another one of his views. Public office is a public trust. Unnecessary taxation is unjust taxation. And all of his views, once again, in the ringlets here. Yet, incidentally, this one I think is terribly funny. I forget which magazine cover this probably was on. But here, the Democratic ticket, Cleve and Steve, meaning Cleveland and Adlai Stevenson, Cleve and Steve. And here he is actually being portrayed as the court jester. You can, of course, see that here with the shoes. And purity in politics. Public office is a public trust. The spoils idea is very wicked. I believe in civil service reform. 45,000 postmasters removed in order of President Cleveland, 1885. Hurrah for Stevenson. He's one of Du Bois. Remember? He felt the civil service system put through by Arthur would do just fine, but the Democrats had been out of power for 24 years and they clamored for offices, so he finally gave Adlai the job of taking out 45,000 postmasters and putting in Democrats. To the victor belong the spoils of the enemy, is the line. That is where the spoils system comes from. And so who used the spoils system? Grover Cleveland did, to reward Democrats instead of using the merit system. So, two-edged sword there. Yes, you believe in purity of politics, yet you had to succumb to the spoil system. Hurrah for our pure and holy candidate. I don't know if I would have called him holy. So making a real joke here of the whole thing. And instead of a holy gold halo, he has a brass halo. So actually very smart and cunning cartoon here, if you get the full irony of it. An epidemic of strikes then sweeping the country proved very damaging to the Harrison cause. They eloquently refuted the shop-worn Republican argument that high protection meant high wages. They wouldn't have been having strikes if they had been receiving high wages, so obviously they weren't. Grover ended up polling 277 electoral votes to Harrison's 144. Cleveland, like Andrew Jackson, received the popular vote 3 times, but he would take office only twice. But he is unique of any president in the United States in that he served with a defeat in between. The populists made a very good showing for themselves, coming up with 22 electoral votes. Here they took over 1 million popular votes. While Cleveland took 46% of the popular, he took 62% of the electoral. And this was one messed up election. Remember I told you electors are supposed to vote the way the state votes, but an elector can do however they please, because that philosophy, the masses are asses. Way back when the Constitution was created, Alexander Hamilton and the aristocracy, in case that the people vote wrong, an elector still can vote how you should have voted. And so nowadays it's almost uncommon for an elector not to do what he's supposed to do. But here you've got one elector in California, one elector in Oregon, the 3 electors in North Dakota, every last one of them voted differently. Michigan, the split state, 9 voted one way, 5 voted the other way. One elector in Ohio voted differently. Oregon, did I mention that one? Yeah, we got one over here in Oregon. I was thinking there was one other one yet too. Maybe I missed it. But yeah, really messed up. Now, once again, New York at this time was the biggest state as far as electoral votes. North Dakota had 3 then. To this day, North Dakota still has 3. South Dakota had 4. Today, South Dakota only has 3. They both have 3. They still have only 3. I mentioned this the other day. That's why this census is so important. There's only X number of electoral votes and seats in Congress, and they just redistribute it every 10 years. We only hold a census every 10 years. It's a lot of work. And so this is the census year, 2000. It's always on a 0 year, 2020. And so if we want in Texas to increase our numbers and our representatives in Congress and our electoral votes, we have to turn in every last person that lives here and prove we have a higher population. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these states that only have 3 electoral votes will change. Alaska has 3 electoral votes. Rhode Island, see that itty bitty little red thing there, has 4. More people live in Rhode Island than live in all of Alaska. Woo! Yes, more people live in Rhode Island than live in North Dakota, than live in South Dakota, than live in the big sky state of Montana and Wyoming. Yes, the populace made a remarkable showing with 22 electoral votes for General Weaver. And Benjamin Harrison, the man, he is leaving office. Harrison and his wife Caroline, their home in Indiana. Nice house. But then he was a lawyer. Nice house. As a younger man, I really like him with the tighter beard. That scraggly stuff is just, and he's got some real mutton chops there too. So, yes, the tighter beard is ever so much more becoming, in my opinion. Harrison with some of his grandchildren in the White House. And his daughter. I do believe this one is his daughter. Here are 3 generations of Harrisons. He and his wife, his daughter, and 2 of the grandkids. Oops, wrong way there. And Harrison had 2 children make it to adulthood, and a daughter and a son, he and his wife. And Harrison and his daughter and one of the grandchildren. Talk about bringing the family with you to the White House. During his administration, his daughter Mary and her 2 children, his wife Carolyn's father, and additional relatives all lived in the White House. Man, if I had a relative living in the White House, I'd say, hey, let me in there too. And Carolyn, quite a beautiful woman for First Lady. Unfortunately, she was there, probably just a touch over 3.5 years. The election is in November, and she dies in October, right before the November election, first Tuesday in November. So probably, what is that? She died maybe about a week and a half before the election, so she did not see her husband lose the election. Now, back then, the new president doesn't take office until March 4th, so she would have been First Lady up until March 4th. But she dies and does not serve out her full time as First Lady. And one of his grandchildren, I would assume. His grandfather, who was William Henry Harrison, the president, Benjamin Harrison, the grandson, who is president, and I'm sure you are familiar with the TV show Pawn Stars, who are the Harrisons, the old man, and I can't remember the main guy's name, drawn a blank here, and Corey is the son. He is just the friend, Chumley. He is not part of the Harrison clan, but they have mentioned it quite a few times on the Pawn Star show that they trace their lineage back to the Harrisons, and they are quite proud of that they are related to the presidents. We've seen some presidents' graves quite magnificent. Here, I cannot believe how small and insignificant, and we've seen some others that are quite insignificant too, but this is the only listing that he was even president. Now, it's a little bit bigger, I think, maybe, than the fact that he served in the war as a volunteer and was a general and a senator. I'd have, man, president. If that's yet, that's all the fact that you would even know this was a president of the United States. That's what's written here on his tombstone. Wow. And different members of the family are surrounding him. And some postage stamps. Over time, there's a series of all the presidents where they've got their signature. And this one, Liberia did 2 series of our presidents. I couldn't find the other series of one of him, but this is one of the ones of that Liberia did of the U.S. presidents. So yes, all of our presidents have had postage stamps done of them. And I will stop now, and we will begin with Grover Cleveland's second term in our next lecture.